We're live. Gray's Currencies. And I'm going hatless today because it's too hot. It's too hot in here. Office is all cool. It's like cool all day. But in the evening when the sun's baking on that wall and that ceiling and that wall, it got hot. And we're 90 plus degrees outside. So, and I had spaces pulled up. So we got people coming in. Yeah, we got people coming in. Okay, cool. Let me get spaces. I had it. Give me a second. Hope you guys are doing good. Okay, where is it? It's kind of disguised on my phone because it's so small. Where'd it go? I'm gonna have to go to PulseChain's. Just bear with me, guys. Hey, Lemonade, good to see you. Okay, go to my profile, go to home, search, PulseChain's. And my audio should be working. Let me know if it's working. I want to know if it's working. Ha! No. Not Liberty Swap. Pulse. Oh, man, guys. You know, I had it pulled up. I was fixing to say, like, if I had things ready and then I just jump on YouTube, then I'm less nervous when I'm trying to find PulseChain's. Okay. Here we go. Okay, just 1 second. Okay. You got to get past all this stuff. Hey, Lemonade. My mic is off. Good evening.
What's up, Banana? How are you?
I'm doing good, except for it's hot where I am. It's 91 degrees where I live, which is just roasting. Thank God my daughter came home from college this summer with air conditioner.
Nice. Does your office have a little AC or a window you see or anything like that?
The building has air conditioning, but in the evening the sun is on the ceiling, the wall behind me, and the wall to the left of me. So like 3 out of 6 sides are getting the intense sun, and it doesn't keep up. It's all right. It's only for a season, literally. So, but yeah, it's like hot. And I like heat as long as I can be like active in it, and I don't mind getting out and getting dirty and stuff. But other than that, man, like I like to be clean.
Yeah, I'm a wimp with the seasons. We don't have many seasons here.
I know. Yeah, I've lived there before. It's very moderate, very nice. How are you doing?
Good. Another day in crypto.
Yeah.
So PulseX conference was going on today. That was pretty cool.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah. You want to show that community support, right? And just jump in, like the stream or whatever it is, make a comment, and play. You want to play it to the end if you can, because that helps the algorithm. And then subscribe if you're not subscribed. Anything on PulseChain, we should be doing all of that.
Yeah, I think RH specifically likes those style of conferences where they're just all online based, so the community isn't having to spend any money to get anywhere or do anything. Which the in-person conferences I think are great too, because it's cool to, meet who the community is in person. But to also hold some of those live online conferences that anyone can get to, no matter if they're financially doing good or not, and they can enjoy and support and learn. I didn't get a chance to listen to any of it. I was working, but I definitely think it's cool. And he's kind of voiced that he likes those style conferences as well.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed to it. I've attended a little bit of stuff like that, but I don't have the patience for it. I can't sit. Like, I don't know if you've heard me say this, but like my computer is total distraction zone for me. I come here and it's like candy. I can do this and I can do this. And so to sit and focus to a conference is like, no, my focus would be, my attention would be divided big time.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how long this one goes on daily, but sitting there for more than 2 hours is definitely difficult whenever I do these spaces, or even when I do YouTubes. Since I'm not behind the screen, I like pace around and walk around.
Oh, that's great.
Steps and,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wish I could do that. I technically could. But yeah, and it actually engages your brain. It helps you when you're moving, your blood is flowing, and it helps your thought process. It helps you think more clearly. It's wonderful. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so last time we came in, what was it, Saturday? I forget what we were talking about on Saturday.
You mean you forget like the big topic of Saturday?
Yeah, I feel like it was pretty engaging. I feel like we had a lot of people listening, and I'm trying to remember why. Because I remember scrolling through who was listening. Usually Saturdays are more active spaces.
Yeah.
But I remember there being quite a bit more people in there than usual. So I'm trying to think what we're talking about, just to recap for anyone who wasn't there.
Right, and I don't remember. So
me neither.
So somebody help us remember what the big topic was on Saturday that we were talking about, that we kind of left off at the end. We had to cut it off a little bit short, probably.
I know we were pTGC and UFO were both pumping a little bit going into Saturday, so that was a nice thing going on within our ecosystem, since PulseChain in general has been kind of trending downwards in the last week. We've been having a lot of sell pressure from some bigger wallets, which I'll be honest, I'm actually pretty happy with how PulseChain's been holding up in price and how Hex has been holding up in price, considering the amount of sell pressure we have been having lately and the amount of liquidity that's actually back in the assets.
Right.
It seems like there is something buying into those sells.
Okay. Like
community, right?
Yeah.
Community either wanting a discount or possibly people selling to then go and buy back in other wallets to distribute to different wallets. Who really knows? But it definitely seems like, to me, it should have had a little bit more price impact on us to this point. And I think we're holding up quite well, considering some of the largest wallets in our ecosystem are taking a little profits.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I think the Grays are handling the sideways action masterfully, in my opinion. I've been looking at some of the ecosystem tokens that I've been pitched or that have made rude comments about us, and I just have my little list. And every once in a while, I go through Deck Screener and I look at and I do a little comparison. And I'm like, oh yeah, man, nothing is beating the pTGC and UFO, in my opinion. I mean, there might be one. There is one, okay, but I think from what I heard, there's some manipulation been going on there, and I did not go try to find that information. It came to me just naturally, and I was like, oh, okay, well that would explain why that one's doing a little bit better in this short time frame versus PTGC. But on the topic of PulseChain, I keep hearing that the price of Pulse is being manipulated down on purpose, and perhaps to springboard whenever the person holding it down is ready to let it go. That's what I keep hearing from, here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, if someone's suppressing it by obviously adding some sell pressure, and the natural demand to the products is pushing up on it constantly, as soon as you fill those holes, at the bottom of the leaking bucket, if those holes are made artificially by someone suppressing the system, as soon as it stops selling, then that means demand will make price appreciation. And especially if then that value rotates back in, if the sell pressure was there just temporarily. I definitely think there's games to be played. Richard, I have a lot of faith in Richard as far as how he's going to increase the value of his ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's on our plan and when we want it with the market. And I think also sustainability. I think with us having an entire blockchain now instead of just one token, I do think we need to care a little bit more about the sustainability of the X's as well as how many X's also. But the nice thing for pTGC and UFO, with prices kind of coming back down a little bit and us just getting to see pTGC's machine do its thing, the value generation's doing great, adding to the buy and burns, LP ads, APY for holders. But with prices low on the RH tickers, what that actually does is makes our liquidity lower, right? Because if the assets we are connected to are going down, and yes, that equals a little bit less value generation for our ecosystem, because now market maker bots need to move less money to fix prices, which then equals less value generation. But the silver lining to that is, if we are able to onboard and also, onboard from outside of crypto, from other blockchains, even onboard from inside of PulseChain, as far as being a unique product on PulseChain that has product market fit, it's a lot easier for us to do X's at these levels. It takes less value, right? The lower our liquidity is due to our assets we're connected to being low, we can actually do some really easy X's here at these lower levels that when prices start going up, which is obviously an awesome thing, but we will need more value coming over into their ecosystem to do those same amount of X's against PulseChain. So I definitely think that's something our community can look at right now and say, hey, it definitely is hard to get people over the bridge right now with prices down. It's definitely hard to get even existing PulseChain community members into other assets because a lot of the assets they're holding are down. And then it's also somewhat difficult to get non-crypto people in the PulseChain just because, again, it's not a pumping chart. But if we are able to, and if we work hard, this is kind of what pTGC and UFO has been doing ever since launch. Pretty much anyone here on PulseChain has been doing this. It does actually make a large impact on our ecosystem, each one, because the liquidity is artificially, or not artificially, but it currently is shrunken down, making it to where we can do X's against PulseChain with less amount of value into the system. And then when PulseChain revalues any X's we do at this low level, well, that's an X multiplier to whatever PulseChain does. Even if it's just a 2X right now, and then PulseChain runs at 5X, well, pTGC just experienced a 10X.
So Lemonade was asking, he was making some comments, and he actually remembers what we were talking about last Saturday. But let me repeat what he said. He says Roots said tomorrow ETH, Pulse, and pTGC are pumping. Maybe Lemonade, you can explain what you mean by that comment. And then
I know what he's talking about.
Oh, okay.
But he can if you want to wait for his answer, or I can just say it.
No, I think you should just go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I saw B Roots before I came on here. I was scrolling on Twitter. I saw he made a comment saying that Jim Cramer said that he sold all his ETH today, or I don't know when Jim Cramer sold it, but in his video today, he said he sold his ETH. So, obviously the meme and the joke is to inverse Jim Cramer. So whenever he says buy, you sell. Whenever he says sell, you buy.
Yeah.
And it's actually, people have tracked this. And if you just inverse trade Jim Cramer, you actually usually make out pretty good.
Okay.
So he said he sold his ETH and he thinks it's somewhat dying. So what B Roots is kind of calling is that he thinks ETH's going to be pumping tomorrow, which in turn, because we are connected in liquidity with ETH, he thinks PulseChain's going to be pumping. And then he's saying pTGC is going to be pumping more. And not every day happens that way, but I've actually kind of overlaid the charts of ETH, PulseChain, and pTGC all over each other because they are heavily connected. When value flows into risk on assets like ETH, PulseChain, pTGC, that value tends to make its way to lower levels. So, and then when value flows out of risk on assets, you can actually see that value leaving most likely all assets, right? There is some of the outliers, right? pTGC has been the outlier even this cycle, but even with being an outlier, we can still see the market still moving together, right? And this is important. So I've actually overlaid pTGC, PLS, and ETH, and you can actually see every time ETH has risen, PLS also rose, pTGC also rose, right? Not small amounts, like when you can actually see decent movements on ETH throughout like the last 2-year charts. So for an example, I think it was like ETH did a 2x, Pulse did a 4x. Then that was like 2 years ago or whatever. And then you saw ETH did like a 1.5x. And then we saw then Pulse did a 3x. But in these times that ETH did a 2x or a 1.5x, PulseChain was doing more X's in average, right? Not every day. It's not an everyday thing. But if you take like a larger time frame, every time value is flowing into ETH, you can actually see on the chart that PLS was doing more X's in that time period. And what it's from, a lot of people like to be like, oh, it's Hart's Law only, or hey, it's a leverage position. They like saying these words, but they don't actually understand what's happening. Because, for an example, PLS is bonded with ETH, but it's also bonded with stables. So just from Hart's Law, we are getting an increase in price from ETH moving up, but then market makers have to fix the price of PLS in the ETH pool against the stable coin pools. So we're not actually getting as much as people realize from that, because what you get is a mean of all of your liquidity. It's the same way how pTGC works. You could look at the liquidity web of pTGC, and then you could look at the assets we're connected to, and what they move daily is what we're moving daily. We're getting the mean of all this movement as well. So you look at PLS, and it's bonded with a lot of ETH, a lot of, bridged in USDC, bridged in DAI, bridged in Tether. And what PLS is going to get daily is pretty much the average of its liquidity. But where a lot of the value actually comes from is when value flows to ETH, a portion of that value, because ETH is appreciating, new money's coming in, some alt tokens start running, money's flowing, a portion of that value makes its way to PulseChain, right? When value starts flowing in, imagine PulseChain as a bucket. That's like putting the hose in the top and turning it on, right? Value is now flowing in, so prices can start rising. A good portion or some of the value does make its way to PulseChain. And that's what gives PulseChain almost like a multiplier over what it gets from Hart's Law, from ETH, right? But then you can also see directly correlated when that value starts flowing into assets, it also makes its way to PulseChain, and then it also makes its way to pTGC and UFO, other altcoins that have sustainability on the chain. Because this isn't the first cycle with blockchain. You can actually study ETH for the last multiple cycles, BNB for multiple cycles, Solana for multiple cycles. A large majority of the value that flows onto a blockchain does not stay in the gas token. They're looking for the sustainable meme tokens or alt tokens on the chain that can give them an X multiplier over the gas token, right? So this is a large percentage of the market makes its way down. When new money flows in, a large portion of it makes its way down to other alt tokens like pTGC, UFO. But then also, let's say it doesn't make its way to pTGC and UFO. Let's say only a small portion make its way to pTGC and UFO. Well, some of that money is going to make its way to Hex, right? Hex was a massive mover last cycle. It's got a founder who's one of the largest people in crypto, one of the thought leaders of crypto. He's got PulseX, he's got Inc, he's got Most, he's got Pump, he's got all these tokens kind of under his brand. So, but the cool thing with pTGC is even if the value doesn't make its way to pTGC, if it just makes its way to any portion of our liquidity web, which is, again, those tickers we just listed, plus like PDI, Atropa, Teddy Bear, even some other meme coins, it's actually all appreciating the price of pTGC over the gas token, right? And this is what really helps us have these amplified movements when value actually starts flowing into the chain. But again, even when value flows out of risk on assets, it works the same exact way, just in the opposite direction. Value is going to flow out of ETH. Well, of course, value will also flow out of PulseChain. Of course, value will also flow out of pTGC and UFO, especially if they're up a lot of X's. Like, this is just naturally what happens. You can fight against that, right? Value could be leaving blockchain in general, and you could fight against that by bringing more value into your specific product, but it is more difficult, right? It's like swimming upstream. If you're swimming upstream, you can make it upstream, but you're going to have to work way harder.
Yeah. Well, you helped answer Big Sam's question, because he was wondering why PulseChain seemed to be pulling back a little bit. So I think, let me know, Big Sam, if we did not adequately answer your question. And then
yeah, I can go over that one little part, because someone wrote it in our Telegram a little bit, I think today or yesterday too. You know, everyone says, hey, PLS is supposedly a leverage position on ETH.
Yeah.
Why is it currently moving down right now with ETH moving up? And it's a valid question, because people say this all the time, right? But they don't break down like how that's actually working. And that was kind of what we're just going over. But yes, we do have the ability to do an X multiplier very easily over ETH. We are bonded with ETH, and if just a little amount of value flows into our tiny chain, we can do massive X's over what ETH already gives us in X's. A lot of people don't realize last cycle with Hex was even working off of an X multiplier on ETH. Let's say, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say ETH was its main liquidity pair, which I think it was for the most part, and ETH did a 10X. And we all know Hex did a 10,000X, but what a lot of people don't realize is out of that 10,000X, if 10X came from ETH, what Hex actually only did was 1,000X. It just had an X multiplier of a 10,000X because of ETH. And no one knows this kind of stuff. That's what's so amazing about like the PulseChain community is like we understand how this stuff works pretty much more than every blockchain, every crypto community I've ever listened to, which is super cool. We kind of really have broken this stuff down. But, you know, going back to the ETH question is when ETH starts going up, if value's leaving PulseChain, we're going to, of course, go down in that event. You can't stop just because ETH is going up. Yeah, that's dragging us up a little bit, but that's not, for one, that's not PLS's only liquidity pair. It's also heavily paired with stables, which will anchor PLS down even with ETH rising. If there was no stablecoin liquidity pairs, it would rise up somewhat evenly or more evenly with ETH. Even in that event, if there's constant sell pressure, which we've obviously seen, you know, some big whales capitulating, it's not going to stop, or it's not going to let PLS just keep moving up with ETH evenly. It's going to obviously move down with ETH moving up. But, you know, it can happen the same way very easily the other direction. With ETH moving up and with just a little amount of value flowing over that bridge into these assets, we can have a massive X multiplier over whatever ETH does this cycle, massively.
Yeah.
But we have to have buys instead of sells, right? That's the big thing. Even if we have 0 sells, 0 buys, you know, we can move up and down with the rest of the market just naturally. But if we consistently have sell pressure on the charts, it's going to be down movement instead of positive appreciation. It's as simple as that. But when value does start flowing more heavily into ETH, like we're just kind of seeing this, there is a larger chance that we will get money over the bridge, because that means value is actually flowing into blockchain. Value is actually flowing into risk on assets. It is very hard to go up against other blockchains when there is money leaving blockchain. That literally means money is leaving blockchain. That's prices going down, actually. But when prices start going up and there's money flowing in, it's a lot easier to get a portion of that value into things we believe in that have sustainability, like PulseChain, PulseX, Hex, pTGC, UFO.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe what Richard is really waiting for, especially for this marketing push, right? If you have a huge marketing push planned, you want to do that marketing push when you can see new value actually flowing into blockchain, right? You can do it with all the existing money here from last cycle, but a lot of that money's not moving around and looking for new ecosystems to go into. They're pretty comfy in holding what they hold. Yeah, there's money flowing in and out of ETH and stuff like that, but the best value to tap into is that new value that's flowing in and trying to find a home, trying to find a place to actually store it. And if you can be the loudest and market the best, you're most likely to get the attention.
And I think that's what Richard Hart is getting ready to do. I think I get the impression that there are things in the background, perhaps, that he's waiting to release, and perhaps he's holding the price down. And all know that, and this is not a perhaps, there are 5 shipping containers worth of marketing material. And I think I know what the plan is. Deploy all of it basically at the same time and blast the market with PulseChain. And everybody's going to suddenly know within probably a week or 2 time frame about PulseChain. And he's going to draw a lot of eyeballs to the chain, and people are going to come over to speculate. And Bitcoin is, at all-time high territory. People are going to be taking profits. People are going to be tempted. They'd be like, okay, I made a lot of profit in my Bitcoin, and here's this speculative new, layer 1 going into its first cycle. I'm going to speculate on it. And I think they're coming, man, Zan. I really do.
Yeah, I think, even Richard, as much intelligence, marketing ability, and capital he has, there is only so much like ammo that you're willing to use I'm sure you could tap into more and more and more, but let's say it's even 1, right? Like everyone has a budget, and you want to use that budget, that amount of ammo that you have, at the best timing. It's like, even in real life, if you only had a certain amount of ammo and someone was breaking into your house, you would strategically plan out when the best time to use that ammo is to get the most out of it. You wouldn't just start shooting through the walls with not even knowing where they were or anything.
Yeah, like they do in the movies.
Most likely. Yeah, like they do in the movies. So I think it's just being strategic and frugal with the value that he does have. I think he obviously is a super frugal person.
Yes.
For the most part, I think obviously for his movie and stuff like that, he got a little showy, but that was probably his form of marketing and getting to enjoy some of that value as well. I think, even though I think it was for marketing, I think he deserves to enjoy that value that he has as well. And it seemed like he was enjoying it. So that's good.
Yeah. I look at it like this, like he's spending money. He probably already spent it on this marketing campaign. I mean, 5 shipping containers worth of marketing material has got to be, I don't know how expensive, but compared to his crypto bags is like nothing. So he's going to start there. And I like that actually, because that reaches right to the people and gets new blood onto the chain, into crypto, people that, no coiners. That's what I'm excited about. Lemonade.
Yeah, I think no coiners are more likely to hold longer too, and be even better community members. A lot of people who are in crypto already, if you're tapping into people from other blockchains, they currently have been programmed with a very fast trading mentality of like, hey, you're up 2x, get profits and get out. This is because of meme tokens and pretty much the idea of 99% of projects do fail. So they are a little bit triggered, you know what I mean? When they're up X's, they want to rotate out of, that risky play into the gas token or stables, etc., and do it again. To where a no coiner, I don't think realizes that 99% of things in blockchain are scams, literally usually an extraction from your wallet into theirs. So a no coiner, if you lure them into an actual sustainable product that isn't scamming them, they probably will just find home there and be like, wow, this is awesome. And not even know what kind of world of what the world a lot of us know exists in crypto, they possibly won't even experience, or they land here and then maybe they dabble with a few things and they're like, oh, wow, that didn't work in my favor. I'm just going to stick to these, these core tickers that I kind of got into first.
Yeah. Well, he's got a mailing list for the addresses of all the, to where he's going to send those mailers. And he's not just sending them to anybody. My guess is that he selected high net worth individuals that have a history of investing and being responsible with their money. They already have some money, and you can buy these lists. They're not expensive. You can really get granular with who you select, certain zip codes, all these kind of demographics. And so he's got a list, man. And that's who he's going to mail those mailers to, probably people that have money. Hey, I've got a new slide. I built a new slide today. I got it. I got the idea from Saturday's Spaces. You want to hear about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's hear about it. Also, for anyone listening, if anyone wants to come up, feel free to request to speak and I'll bring you up. Yeah,
we don't need to. Yeah, Zen and I don't need to this isn't our show. It's for everybody. We got to remember that. But I'll tell you about my slide.
Just for everyone to know, me and Banana kind of host it, and this space is for the community to ask questions, have open conversation. So if you do want to speak or have any questions about pTGC UFO, feel free to request to speak, and we'll bring you on up.
We basically just talk, you and I, until somebody interrupts us. That's what we're doing. Let me tell you about the new slide I built. I got the idea from. Actually, I got I got the missing piece from Mando, and I think he's in. So I got the missing piece for UFO that I've been struggling with and I got it on Saturday Spaces. So I have pTGC and UFO broken down into different, they each have an alien tech and a superpower. And here's how it goes. pTGC has two forms of alien tech. This is how I broke it down. The AM bots, and the more going into the system then can come out. That's the alien tech, in my opinion, of pTGC. It has two. And its superpower is locking. And that locking is user-centric. Now, UFO has only one alien tech and two superpowers. The alien tech for UFO it's the AM bots, just like pTGC. But it has two superpowers. The first one being it has the thickest LP. No, its thickest LP is with pTGC. That's number one. Number two is the share rates, which is also user-centric. So they each have, it's like a balance, right? pTGC has two alien techs, one superpower. Its superpower is user-centric. UFO has two superpowers and one alien tech, but one of its superpowers is user-centric. What do you think of that?
Yeah, do you mind, for anyone listening, just kind of breaking those down a little bit more in detail? I know what you're talking about with AM bots and locking, but maybe you can go a little bit deeper into each of those.
Sure. pTGC and UFO both operate on, whenever there's an imbalance in the pairs, because they're both index tokens, they're bonded with all these RH tickers and other tickers. Whenever there's an imbalance, the AM bots have to go in and rebalance all of the pairs. And the grays were the first token, pTGC specifically, to figure this out. And it actually solves the demand problem. How can I create demand? Well, we don't even need users. We don't need, somebody can be trading hex for pulse over here to make the pTGC hex pair go out of balance. And the AM bots have to go fix all the pairs that have any connection with the pTGC hex pair. That's the AM bot alien tech. And then more going and then comes out. That only applies to pTGC, and that's in reference to the 5% fee, where you have 3%.
Can I tap into what you were just saying real quick? Because we did just see that event where, pTGC technically holds LPs with a lot of the blue chips on chain. More recently, someone has been dumping hex, which then created a cheap pTGC in that specific liquidity pool. And then when it crossed the threshold due to HEX going down in price, the market makers saw the opportunity to make a little bit of value for themselves. But when they're going to make some value for themselves, they have to pay the fee, which is built into the pTGC system. So our system, yes, being dragged up and down from our connected assets, we get the Hart's Law, but we also get to generate revenue off of Hart's Law. So as everything moves up and down, up or down, each day, when thresholds are passed, we get to use those thresholds to generate revenue for creating a more sustainable system long term. So we get to use that revenue for buy and burns, LP ads, and APY for holders and marketing, etc. But yeah, it's just cool that more recently in the negative direction, so not cool, we prefer it in the positive direction, but HEX is a great example because just in the last couple of days, that threshold was met and we generated revenue off of that. And then when HEX goes back up, which I believe it will, I believe in HEX long term, we get to generate revenue off of it again.
Yeah. And that was a good case in point. We've seen it time and time again where there's a dump on or a run on a certain token. And then, the pTGC and UFO holders end up benefiting because of all the yield that comes in from the arbitrage. And you've even said yourself, I think, that you've seen days where you're like, I think maybe 90% of the volume today was all bots. Haven't you had days like that? I think I remember.
Yeah, definitely. There's
that's
days
incredible.
where we have little human interaction and large market maker interaction. So we're heavier on the utility side of the protocol. And of course, other days are different too. Some days it's a really flat day in PulseChain or just blockchain in general. The thresholds aren't met. But some days we have a little bit more human interaction as far as buying and selling. So we have two different ways to bring in this revenue. The human side of it, emotions, buying, selling, people seeing the value in holding this asset long term. And then we also have the value generation just from the market doing pretty much the only thing that the market guarantees to do is just moving up and down. And when there's these situations like HEX or, most, or even this PDI fall and then rise, we are one of the only systems that actually gets to generate revenue off of these movements and then bring that value back to our ecosystem to increase the foundation of it.
Right. Okay. So the second piece of alien tech for pTGC is that we have more coming into the system than can go out of the system. And that's in reference to the 5% fee where you have 2% going into the DAO, which always performs benevolent things for the ecosystem. So that's 2%. And then you have burning of tokens, which is at least another 1%. We've had this conversation. I think that's about 1% because you got LP being created, which buys and burns tokens. Then you have burning of pTGC. That's 3% out of the 5. And then 2% goes to holders. That is what can be extracted. So you have more going into the system than coming out. That's alien tech. That's a very high level formula. It seems simple now, but I'm sure in the development phase, I'm sure you had an aha moment at some point. And, when you might have even figured out the fee and where it was all going and then realized what you had done. I'd like to hear that from you.
Yeah. So on the design of pTGC, obviously we're studying a lot of different projects, and let's be clear, even the APY that's paid to the holders, that actually comes from value being generated from the system. So even if all of our holders just sell what they receive instantly, it still equals somewhat just a zero on our books, because before that user never even gets paid that APY unless it's generated, which is really different than inflationary assets, right? With an inflationary asset, the demand could just not even be there for the asset, but the APY still has to be paid or does get paid. And then if that user is to sell that APY, it actually equals a net negative on the chart, right? So you can actually start going in a negative direction. But with our system will not pay out the APY unless it's actually generated from the value generation of the system. So even if users sell all their APY, you kind of still end up in the same spot. But what we wanted to do was we didn't want to end up in the same spot every single time the value was generated and then paid out. We wanted to land a step higher every single time. And this was just taken off of other projects that existed that had reflections and stuff like this. This isn't a new idea. This has been done in crypto for multi-cycles now. But what we made sure was that the value getting put into the system is more than the value that could actually come out of the system and bring it back down to zero. And how we did that is we just made it to where on every single transaction or on every single 5% fee that happens, 40% of it goes to APY and 60% of it goes to the foundation of the ecosystem, which is buy and burns and LPS.
Yep, exactly.
And it just creates sustainable growth, right? As we move forward, we have people that sell APY, people who will buy, people who will sell. But with all of this interact and market makers, right? So it's not just people. Market makers do a lot of this. But every single time a market maker moves value, you get to remember some value is generated. And even if 100% of the value that went to APY sold, you still move up a step. And that foundation ever rises with every single transaction.
Yep. It's genius, dude. It's genius. Okay, so PGDC.
And I feel like what we've seen so far, like, is still very minimal to what it is going to be in the future, right? Not even after this cycle, but like next cycle, where PTGC becomes even more distributed, like naturally from the holders, because there is going to be people who ride it up this cycle and take profits and sell and so on and so forth. But that system will just be continually doing this and doing this and doing it. And I'm excited for like not even just seeing this cycle later on, but even next bear market into next cycle, what that's going to equal long term, continuously adding to that foundation, making the supply better distributed, buying out people, right? Because this system constantly keeps pushing the price up. Well, when you keep pushing the price up, you're going to push people into profits. And those people, a lot of people do take profits. But even when those people take profits, they have to make the foundation stronger. And so on and so forth. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so the third piece for PGDC is its superpower, and that is in the locking. So you can hold your PGDC and earn reflections. And this isn't to answer part of your question, Cornelius. He wants to know how the reward systems work. So at PGDC, you can hold it to earn reflections. You can stake it to earn staking rewards. And when you are staked, you're also continuing to earn reflections. But then you can go a step further and you can lock your tokens. And then that's a big commitment. When you're locked, you're staked. You have to be staked in order to lock, and you still earn reflections also. But the reason that the locking, in my estimation, is a superpower is because the holding rewards, the reflections, and the staking rewards are paid to users based on the price of the tokens today. But the locking rewards are paid on token quantity. The contract does not care how many, it doesn't care what the value of the tokens is that it's sending to the other lockers when somebody early end locks. And so, I mean, the tokens could be worth 10, 50 cents, $1 or more. And if you're getting 1,000 of these, tokens from somebody early ending their lock, it could be very rewarding versus holding rewards and staking rewards, but it's a big commitment. But that's PTDC's superpower, and it's user centric. Then UFO has one alien tech. It's the AMM bots, has two superpowers, one of them being user centric. And I already described how the AMM bots. But UFO's superpower, one of two, is it has a very thick LP with PTDC. Like these two tokens are bonded most thickly with each other, followed by PLS, followed by, all the other tickets. You've got Hex, PulseX, Inc., PDI, and other tokens. And then the second superpower for UFO is the share rates. And those, again, are user-centric. And the share rates are, you get a share rate when you input UFO into a pool with one of, how many are there? 7 RH tickers, Zen? Or I think there are 6. You have 7 options. One is PTDC, and then 6 are the are the RH tickers, if I remember correctly. But you're assigned a share rate depending on how much UFO you put into the pool. And the reason, in my opinion, it's a superpower is because that share rate doesn't change. And you're going to incur impermanent loss one direction or the other, but your share rate won't change. And your share rate is what determines how much yield you get. And as long as you hang on to your share rate, you have a fixed position, not even a fixed position. It can be dynamic depending on other users going in and out of those pools. So yeah, they each have each token has three very special aspects to it, in my opinion. And it's like a perfect balance. I put an image, I put a copy of the slide in the main chat if you guys want to have a look at it. I think it's pretty sweet, man. The way you built it.
Yeah. So, one thing I find very special, I'll start with pTGC with the locking, is a lot of people don't realize in the good products in crypto, right? And you have to keep in mind, 99% of products in crypto are not good, even more, 99.9% of products are not good. 99% of them that are launched are literally designed to get your value out of your wallet into theirs. The other 0.9% probably mean well and they just fail, right? That's the sad numbers to that. But when you do find the right product, the sad truth is in crypto, you usually hurt yourself in the right product. And what I mean by is it's not necessarily even how early you find this product, but it's how long you can hold that right product. And Richard obviously designed Hex in a way to where you would actually delay gratification within code, and you were incentivized for doing so. So you're actually incentivized to help yourself in the future if Hex ended up being an amazing store of value, right? We're still in this discovery phase of it either making it or breaking it. I believe it's going to make it. So I believe by him having a system coded into his contract that actually helps the user from themselves, right? From actually selling their entire position too early. Think about if this was coded into Bitcoin, how many people would actually be most likely financially better off, and actually how much higher Bitcoin's price could be at this point as well. So I saw a lot of value in that, and I thought this was important for pTGC as well because it's been designed to be a multi-cycle store of value system, and most likely a person's worst enemy is themselves in situations like this, because in crypto, people get up 5x and they're like, I need to get these profits. But a 5x in the process of thousands of X's is nothing, right? And it is important to take profits and change your life in real life, but there is blocking, which is designed in the pTGC system to where you can create ladders or even just lock up a small portion of your portfolio that in code actually incentivizes you with APY to delay your gratification with possibly just a portion of your bag. This doesn't only help you if pTGC is successful long term, but it also helps the protocol because it gives security with the other holders, and it helps the price because the only thing that really matters in any cryptocurrency is buying and holding. So you should incentivize the people who are actually willing to do that long term. Richard's a thought leader of a lot of this stuff. We just tweaked it here and there and put it in the new contract.
Right. I want to answer Cornelius Toyn's question a little more thoroughly. So Cornelius, when you hold, stake, or lock pTGC, you're going to earn pTGC. That's the reward token. And I always got to wonder, why would I want to hold a reward token that rewards me in another token, right? Why don't I just go buy the other token? So that's just a little side nugget there. But with UFO, if you hold, you can do two things with UFO. You can hold it to earn more UFO, or you can LP it to earn PLS, which is the layer 1 network token that you can do anything with. So
yeah, let me tap in, if you don't mind, into paying out in the token, right? A lot of people tend to try to pay out in other tokens, right? And I agree with you, right? If you're holding a token to earn another token, most likely you're never going to get close to if you really just want that other token, the APY that you'll receive by holding this one, most likely will never equal than if you just put your value in that other asset, if you believed in that asset long term. So that's one thing, right? But another thing that a lot of people don't realize is if a system's generating revenue and it's paying you out in a different asset, it has to sell the revenue that it generates, or maybe not sell, but that revenue could have went to buying the token that you're holding, right? In this example, it's pTGC. So when you pay out the token that it's holding, it's now up to the user if they want to hold it longer or if they want to sell it right on the market instead of the code selling it right on the market right when it pays it out to that user. So it actually equals a little bit of buy pressure on the chart. It helps with price appreciation. And anyone who actually has been paid out in pTGC and hasn't instantly transitioned it into another asset, most likely won heavier than them, whatever they transitioned into, due to the fact that pTGC has been one of the best performers on the chain. So what we've been earning in APY, the pTGC asset, is what we actually find to be most valuable for price appreciation, scarcity, reasons like that. And then when we hold our APY in that asset, we're also helping the price of pTGC, which then creates a snowball effect, or a situation where you're like, wow, by me holding on to my APY and earning APY, I'm also helping the price of my whole entire position.
Yep, there you go. Well, I think that answers all the questions in the chat. And we went through the fancy new slide that I made today. No, but I seriously,
cool. Okay.
I got that little nugget on Saturday, and I was like, oh man, the missing piece. I was thinking.
I would want to go into the UFO shares too. If you want to, if that's cool. Since we're on the topic and we're kind of going over all this stuff.
Yes. And actually, let me go back. Let me find, because Lemonade remembered on Saturday, we were talking about the ROI and UFO high returns currently. That's what he said. So
yes. So
shares.
For anyone listening, UFO is currently, I think, 5 times cheaper than pTGC in price. Not in market cap, not in like price of token, but in market cap. So what I'm saying is you are going to get a percentage of the supply for less money. So if let's say you have $5,000, if you go into UFO, you're going to get 5 times the amount of supply than if you went into pTGC. This doesn't really mean anything, right? You can hold 100% of the supply of something, and if it goes to zero, you own 100% of something that's worth zero, right? It's kind of like the philosophy, do you want to own 100 rocks or 1 diamond, right? This is the idea there. But I do like explaining this because I do believe pTGC and UFO are both diamonds. I believe they're both sustainable, long-term projects that will do tons of X's on their own. But there is a unique opportunity there if you think, right? Because how the APY is paid out is the volume is the value generation. And if you own a bigger percentage of supply, that means you own a bigger percentage of the APY portion that's paid out. Yep. So I like bringing that up because there is an opportunity there with UFO that you can get 5 times the amount of supply for the same amount of value, but that doesn't mean your APY will be 5 times more.
Right.
If pTGC has more volume than UFO, you most likely will be earning more in pTGC. If UFO has more volume, you will be earning more with UFO. Keep in mind, pTGC on every transaction, you're getting your portion of 2% because you get the holding rewards and staking rewards if you're staked. On UFO, you're getting your portion of 1% of the transaction. Where the math gets a little bit tricky for most, you have to realize, okay, I'm getting if volume, this is the best way to kind of look at it. Imagine pTGC and UFO had the exact amount of volume. This is obviously not the case. It's different every single day. But imagine they had the same amount of volume. Right now, since you're getting 5 times the amount of supply for the same amount of money, it's actually a better APY opportunity to get UFO if you're in it for the APY. Why? Because yes, you're only getting 1% of every transaction instead of 2, but since you have 5 times more, the math actually equals a higher APY. But if UFO equals the same price as pTGC and they had the same volumes, pTGC would be paying more than 2 times more. You know what I mean? Because you're getting 2% of every transaction. So I like bringing that up because there is opportunity there, but I don't know if that opportunity is going to equal better APY, better X's. It could be equal less APY and less X's. There is no telling what the future is, but a lot of people don't understand how the APY is paid out and how it's generated, and it's based on your percentage of the supply. The more percentage of the supply you own, the greater APY that you earn.
Right. So I want to talk about UFO shares because I have some. They're one of my prized possessions, and I know a lot of other people have them too. It's not just me. But let's start with a little experiment that I did, Zen, a few weeks ago. I have an experimental LP of 1 million UFO. So it has 1 million UFO shares. And I simulated unpairing it. And there were, at the time, if I had unpaired it, there would have only been 300,000 UFO in that LP because the UFO has done so well that I've been punished. And I only have 300,000 UFO in that pool, not 1 million, but I still have my 1 million UFO shares. So if I unpaired it.
Okay, let's rewind a little bit and why that's the case. Because a lot of people don't understand that.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. Oh, please. Oh, do you want to?
Oh, me? Okay. Yeah, I'll do it. Okay. So when you're a liquidity provider, you're earning an APY, but it's at the cost of something called impermanent loss. You can actually liquidity provide for years, and as long as prices go up and back down and they come back to the ratio that you entered in at, you're pretty much just getting APY and no impermanent loss, right? This is best case scenario for the most part. But if you are holding an asset that, let's say, is valuable and one that's not valuable, one asset would go up in price and one asset would go down in price, what you would be experiencing is like extreme impermanent loss. Most likely the APY never even comes close to the value you lost via impermanent loss, right? So how we structured UFO is when you enter into a liquidity position, you receive this thing called UFO shares. And that's the amount of UFO you enter into the LP pool with. What those UFO shares is, that is your percentage of the PLS rewards. This creates a couple things, right? The idea here did a few things. We kind of accomplished a few things with this UFO share strategy. The first one is it was a way that we were able to let people farm within our system, but actually keep 100% self-custody of their PLP tokens the entire time. So both pTGC and UFO, when you're interacting with the dApps, even though you're staking within them or farming, most other contracts or protocols have you give up custody of your tokens. This is not DeFi, in my opinion. You shouldn't ever give up custody of your tokens. So we've actually structured both pTGC and UFO that where you actually keep custody of your PLP tokens or your pTGC tokens when interacting with the dApps. So this is the first reason. But then the other reason is we actually believe that UFO will outperform most of the things it's connected to, right? So the people who are providing LP early, which Banana's explaining his experience right now, is he came in with 1 million UFO, and then whatever the equivalent amount of value was on the other side, because you have to come in with even amounts of value. Let's say it was $1,000 and $1,000, UFO $1,000, PLS $1,000 in this example. Well, what happened was, due to the tokenomics and utility and decreasing supply of UFO, is UFO has actually gone up in value against PLS. So even though he's earning an APY, which is awesome, he is incurring impermanent loss. So he's actually losing the token that has more value and getting the one that had less value, the one that didn't go up in this example, PLS. So he's actually ended up with, when he went in, he had 1 million UFO. Now he only has 300,000 UFO. So he still has his 1 million UFO shares, though. So this gives this liquidity position Banana has a unique kind of value, because if he was to close this LP pool down and instantly reopen it, he would not get 1 million UFO shares again. He would only get 300,000 UFO shares.
Right.
What this creates is anyone who wants to come in later on and get the same size UFO shares as Banana, they're technically going to have to come in with a little more than 3 times the amount of value than Banana has in LP right now, just to get the same amount of UFO shares. So just to earn the same amount of APY as Banana, they'll have to provide over 3 times the amount of liquidity. And what this is actually doing for Banana and any other early liquidity provider in the UFO system, it's incentivizing them to stay, right? And we want to incentivize early people to stay because they're actually generating APY for the holders of UFO. So if you're a holder of UFO and you don't want to LP provide, the LP providers are actually generating an APY for you. So you're supporting the holders of the system. You're also supporting UFO's price because you're backing it in LP. There's currently like $7 million backing the UFO price. Probably one of the most liquid tokens on the entire chain, especially in market cap. Market cap, it's only 20 million and has as much LP as pTGC, Hex, PulseChain's, etc. These are like hundreds of million market cap tokens. It's also buying and burning UFO. So they're helping the UFO price by making it scarce and adding demand to it. And then these LP providers are also buying and burning the heck out of pTGC. So they're making pTGC more scarce as well and adding demand there as well. But even if Banana, let's say, leaves, there's a pro to this too. Don't leave, Banana. We want you to stay in. But if Banana leaves, he's now giving up his early UFO share rates.
Yeah.
So that actually makes the share rate in whole better for everyone else that came later, or even the other people who are earlier with them, because they're no longer having to share with one of the early guys within UFO. So a ton of moving parts there, a lot of reasons, but there is an incentivization that a lot of people don't realize with UFO to actually keep people LPing. And no other farms really have this incentivization. If UFO keeps going up in price against the RH tickers, it's going to actually become more and more difficult for Banana to close that down, because he's going to be giving up his percentage of the APY for less and less and less value compared to what it would take to create it.
Right. So if I unpaired this little LP, it would cost me, just like you said, 3 times as much economic value to get it back, to get the 1 million shares back. And it's the 1 million shares that is most precious to me, because it's what is paying me in Pulse every single day. And that was a very eye-opening experiment that I did. And I don't plan on closing any UFO pools anytime soon. But can you talk to us about UFO dilution, like dilution in the pools, like share rate dilution, but also dilution on the back end, on the PulseX side of things?
Go a little further. I'm trying to keep up with what you mean by the dilution.
Well, like as people come into the system, aren't we going to be diluted? Let's see. I mean, are we going to earn less and less rewards? I mean, even though I have this fixed share rate.
So this is the idea, right? Is everyone that comes into LP providing, they're actually pulling their own weight because their tokens are put to work. So someone might already have UFO sitting in their wallet. Well, it's kind of working, right? When they entered into the system, they did put PLS into the liquidity web, and that's working for them. But let's say this person now decides to go a step further. Well, now he's taking that UFO he already owns, or she, and then they're going into their wallet and saying, okay, what RH ticker do I have in my wallet that I want to LP provide with? And you can pick the ticker for many different reasons. It doesn't matter what LP pool that you go into. What only matters is your UFO share rate. So with standard farms, you pick an LP pool based on the APY of that specific LP pool, but in this system, I think Mando named it the hive farm. It doesn't matter what pair you go into. You are earning off of what everyone is doing, not just your specific position. What only matters is the amount of UFO you start with, your UFO share in that LP pool. So when this new user comes in, they're supposed to be pulling their own weight, right? Because now they're adding their UFO and RH ticker to the web, which now is generating revenue also. And what you have to realize, Banana, what they should actually be doing is they're actually making your UFO share technically worth more, because they had to add 3 times the amount of value to even get the same amount of APY that you had to give. So they're actually helping increase your APY. So I don't even think there's a dilution factor there. I think it's an amplification factor, and it was designed in that way. And then if you leave, they don't no longer have to share with you. So you were more the dilution factor, because they were working with 3 times the amount of money, but still having to pay your UFO shares out. But if you leave, they no longer have to pay the person who had 3 times less the amount of value, their percentage of the PLS rewards. They no longer have to share with you. They now get that portion for themselves, obviously spread out amongst the new pie.
This whole ecosystem between pTGC and UFO is designed for people that want to be here long term and enjoy dibs off of their passive holdings. That's what I'm thinking.
And then that was the other side of it. Yeah. So then the other thing is a new holder, right? If I just found out about UFO today, and I said, okay, well, let's say I want to hold half, and I also want to contribute to the system, because LP providing, in my opinion, is contributing to the system, right? You're earning an APY, but you're also putting your capital to work, not just for you, but for the price of UFO and the price of pTGC as well. And that user, when they want to contribute, they have to do a few things. The first thing is they have to buy UFO. And when they buy UFO, what are they doing? They're helping the price of UFO. They're having to push, let's say, PLS into the liquidity web to get the UFO tokens, which is increasing the price of UFO. That's first step. And now they're making this decision. Okay, well, now I'm willing to even pair this UFO up with some of my RH ticker, which is kind of like even double backing the ticker themselves. And you have the value entered in with, and now you even added LP to even have more economic energy working for the system. Currently, or I won't even say currently, we've actually seen what this system does when PulseChain starts to move up. When PulseChain started to move up last year around this time, UFO did roughly a 50x with PulseChain doing like a 3 to 4x. So because UFO is an index of all the RH tickers, we are directly connected, and we generate revenue off of their success. The same works in the negative direction, right? When they come down, it drags our price down, and it actually makes our system generate less revenue, because all the LPs shrink down, volume slows down. We're at like all-time lows of volume on chain right now. When the things that are in this web pick back up, I think UFO will pick back up heavily again, and then in turn, so makes UFO more valuable, because the system really starts to turn on. The value generation turn on, the buy and burns turn on, the APYs turn on, etc. But yes, that both systems are meant to be store of values. I think this is the main product market fit of crypto. I don't think it excels too much in the transactional currency sector quite yet. I think we're working that way there with this stablecoin super cycle thing we have going on right now, and some large banks and everything trying to get their grasp on it. So I think we are working our way in the direction of putting transactional currency on blockchain. It's like, hey, we can buy coffee. Hey, we could do this. But first off, the store of value sector within finance is way larger than the transactional currency sector. So if we're trying to tackle the largest sector of finance, store of value is the one. Bitcoin didn't start with store of value. It started with transactional currency, ended up at store of value.
All right.
Right? To where we've been actually specifically designed on store of value to be a store of value, and actually tapping in mechanically to those specific points. Bitcoin, not so much. It just ended up there because it's great for store of value, because of its scarcity, because of the fact that as they keep printing inflation, there is only a certain amount of Bitcoin that will ever exist, where that inflation kind of flows into Bitcoin, just kind of like the stock market, right? The inflation actually is what keeps the stock market kind of going up so consistently on top of, you know, their companies, etc. But that's a full different other topic. But we've put a lot of focus on the product market fit that we're trying to land under, which is store of value. This is a huge sector to tap into. And we've actually coded our stuff in a way that actually incentivizes people to store value here, which we're still, I don't even think anyone's really, I do know some people are storing value here, but I think a large percentage of our holders aren't here to store value yet. People are still on PulseChain and in pTGC for the X's, but there will be a tipping point where I do think the system becomes so large that it's the people who made X's store the X's they've made here, right? This is the goal.
Yeah.
Or they just leave, right? Most other cryptocurrencies, they make X's and then they just leave. But what the goal is here is, hey, we want to make you X's because you're here early. Anyone here on PulseChain right now is early.
Very early, yeah.
No, very early. So we're hoping, hey, the system's designed to give you X's and then give you the best place to store that value where it's respected the best. And then for anyone who comes later, what the product is, hey, this is an amazing store of value that has mechanics for price appreciation. Obviously not as much price appreciation as the early people. This is the benefit and risk of being early. With risk comes reward. But we still have great price appreciation, APY written within the code, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity. It's a different product market fit as it evolves into a larger asset, right? This is why people can store hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin nowadays, to where when it first came out year 2, people weren't necessarily doing that. It evolved into the store of value it is today. It wasn't that the first second it came out.
Is there anything else you wanted to touch on about UFO? Share rates, or what about there are fees that you earn on the back end too on PulseX. And like some of those pools earn differently too, you know?
Yeah, I think the PLS pool earns the best as far as the V2 liquidity providing. So UFO was designed in a way like a lot of farms don't build on top of other dexes. They are actually, usually farms are designed to give a new dex value. So this is kind of what you have to realize is for example, the PulseX farms. The PulseX farms are designed to give people incentives to provide liquidity on PulseX, right? The PulseX farms are designed to give PulseX, the DEX, value, where we aren't a DEX. We are a token. So our specific design of our farms is to give the UFO token value. Two different kind of ideas there. But in that idea, we were able to actually build on top of Richard's DEXs. So our liquidity pools are actually just the standard V2 PulseX liquidity pools. So you're actually also earning the standard V2 liquidity providing fees. And when you close those down, you know, obviously you get those rewards just as you're providing LP normally. The awesome thing about that is we don't have to build our own DEX, and you don't have to trust a DEX that I've created or anything like that. When you provide liquidity through our system, our smart contracts, it's just interacting with PulseX, and you have the PulseX PLP tokens in your wallet. You can literally go into PulseX and look up the PLP pool that you want to look up, and you can see the tokens right there. And you can even close them within PulseX. But when you do close them within PulseX, it's not running through our smart contracts that wipe the fees, etc. So it does cost you more. It's best to use our smart contracts. But the cool thing about it is the ability is there, and it shows the proof of being built on top of PulseX.
Yeah.
Which in turn also adds to the buy and burn of PulseX.
Yeah, between pTGC, UFO, and PulseX, they're like they're all deflationary tokens. So it's going to be cool to watch them burn and amplify each other. I'm just excited for the machines to turn on. I'm excited to see, just 7 days back to back of $1 million in volume on pTGC and UFO. Now that will be something to earmark. When we finally have 7 days back to back of $1 million of volume on both of these tokens, that'll be a day, man. We've gotten into the millions before, multi-millions, but I'm talking about like consistently. I'm ready for it, man.
Yeah, I think so. pTGC's average daily volume is around $350,000. So you have to keep in mind, in the last 6 months, PLS hasn't even been close to SAC rate. For the most part, it's been down here, even below half of SAC rate. So very easily with Pulse passing SAC rate, in my opinion, these $1 million average days can easily be sustained, just mechanically how the system expands. When Pulse goes up, that obviously increases our liquidity pools evenly. So if Pulse went up 10x, right now, our liquidity web between pTGC and UFO is worth roughly $13 million. Uh-huh. So if Pulse goes up 10x from here, which is pretty much like the all-time highs of PulseChain, which isn't too impressive, to be honest, right? That should be pretty easily obtainable.
Yeah.
That equals $130 million liquidity web. In turn, that's great, right? We have $130 million backing our system. This is larger than pretty much the majority of tokens that exist on any blockchain for on-chain liquidity. That's only PulseChain being at 2 to 3x SAC rate. But more importantly for our system, that's 3 times the amount of value generation. So if we're producing, $350,000 of average daily volume right now at these levels, 10x the price of the assets we're connected to should naturally 10x our volume. So that would be producing $3.5 million a day of volume, give or take, right? This is just kind of expanding evenly. We've actually found, and Banana was the one that found this, is when Pulse increased 3x last time, our volume actually increased more than 3x. So going by the past data, we're actually being modest in the fact that we're saying we think it will expand evenly, because in the past it actually expanded at a faster rate. Even when you expand evenly with a remotely successful Pulse chain, let's say 10x SAC rate, we start hitting numbers that are absolutely insane. Like we then would have, I think, a $300 million liquidity web. The value generation equals like $10 million, or the daily volume equals $10 million daily in pTGC at those rates. And then on $10 million a day, what that equals in value generation day is $500,000 of value generation daily, which, divide or times that by 365, you're at like $180 million a year in value generation just in pTGC. This doesn't even include UFO. Again, you go to the fee structure, 60% of that is getting shoved into the foundation of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So you take $180 million and take 60% of that. That's roughly $100 million going into the foundation of the ecosystem every year if that's maintained. If it goes up, it just keeps multiplying up, right? Obviously, we hope this is a multi-cycle blockchain. It doesn't just have 1 year and go down for the rest of its life. I personally hope it's sustainable, and obviously there will be bull markets and bear markets and bull markets and bear markets. But if we can get PulseChain in these ranges of somewhat success and sustain it, I think pTGC turns into one of the greatest store of values that have existed on chain. That's the goal, right?
Yes. I'm a holder. So yes, it's the goal. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's exciting stuff. I think you were referring to the slide that we built well, it was last week, and I've got it pulled up, where you had the average daily volume is 360,000, and average liquidity pool is $8 million. The value generated was $3.25 million. And then the projected daily volume, if you 10x the LP, it would be $3.6 million in daily volume. But if you 100x'd it, the daily volume would be $36 million. And then the fee generation, if you 10x'd it, $66 million. If you 100x'd it, $657 million in fee generation. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and really, like, for how low we are on PulseChain, like, even for us to get the sac rate from this level is pretty much a 4x. So let's just say it's a 4x. It's a little less, but 4x. Let's say we do a 10x sac rate. That's a 40x from these levels. This is the power of being low, right? Is you can actually do the math from where we are, because every number we're working off is from these numbers. And when you say, oh, a 10x sac rate, like, that seems very, very achievable if you consider the average person's entry price or sacrifice price or investment price, whatever you want to call it, into this protocol. Just 10x that. You have to realize ETH did 1,000x or more than 1,000x that. BNB did 1,000x that. Sol did like something 100x that. Like, if we just do just a 10x, right? This number is so modest, and it really only takes like $30 million net flow into this bridge, which is nothing. Like, Richard could literally do that within a second. Any large investor that finds this blockchain being a good store of value, or, you know, speculative or whatever you want to call it, we can do it that way too. But what that turns pTGC and UFO into is, I believe, is just a monster as far as the system goes. It equals technically an on-chain company, just like a lot of blockchain companies are. Like, you go into the top 100 cryptocurrencies, a lot of those are technically companies, and they're generating possibly, I don't know what they generate, but let's say $10 million, $100 million a year. But the amount of overhead that those companies have is insane. Our system has no overhead. It's fully decentralized and automated. So that means 100% of the revenue that we generate in the system actually gets to go back to token price, which actually means it gets to stay on chain, which then means it helps overall PulseChain's price, right? This is all net positives for the chain, and it helps value stay on chain, especially if we create this great store of value and value flows into the chain to access the store of value, right? This is something that's only on PulseChain and possibly could be only on PulseChain. Well, that means if someone actually wants to be exposed to what it is, right? If they find this product to be unique and better than other blockchains, they're going to have to come to PulseChain to get it. Helps PulseChain's price, helps PulseX's price. You know, everything is connected. As we become larger, we technically will start to lift some of RH's products up if they don't have as much liquidity as our system. I don't think they will. I could be wrong, because Richard likes having thin liquidity because it creates more volatility and up pressure on his assets, to where we kind of go a different route because we get to operate off of an X multiplier of his assets. We can actually really focus on having a lot of liquidity within our system, because we get the X multiplier of his volatile assets. So we can move up and down fairly easily due to the volatility of the things we're connected to, and then still have a lot of value backing our specific ecosystem.
I'd never really looked at our ecosystem as a store of value, but it makes me excited for the future and people coming over that have made gains, whether it's in Bitcoin or Ethereum or X Inc.
Memes,
Pulse or PulseX.
Memes.
There you go.
It could be memes. It could be in real life, right? This is like my thing. Like, I was making value in real life, and I, you know, at first was putting that value back into the business, but then I got the business to a size to where I actually was able to put that value in places to hopefully appreciate, like stocks or properties, etc. And I brought a certain amount of it to cryptocurrencies to store it for value preservation against inflation, for price appreciation, for self-custody, like a lot of the things that large players with large capital want. I wanted that value to generate me revenue, passive income. Like these are all the categories that I was trying to hit within pTGC. And if we actually accomplish what we're going towards, I don't see a reason why large amounts of value don't come to PulseChain to access this product. We still are in the growing stages, right? We're still evolving into what our end, system is, because we haven't had this revaluation of PulseChain. But if PulseChain revalues and the system just keeps doing what it's been doing for the last 2 years, I do personally think that a lot of people will bridge into PulseChain, especially if I think Richard is building PulseChain to be a great store of value, even without pTGC and UFO. That's the amazing thing, right? Like, I think this is already the thing. It's going to have a lot of self-custody. The fact that I bet there's going to be some like privacy features built into this chain eventually, which large players do want privacy on chain, because who the heck wants to be rich and having everyone watch all their movements, right? And if this is the chain that offers the best privacy features, large money will flow into this chain. Well, if we can also be a great value storage place for these large players, once they're here and they get the privacy, like this is great, right? It can really align very quickly. And I'm hoping that people see the value in pTGC being a net positive for this chain due to its sustainability and growth, right? The fact that if we can hit those amount of value generation numbers yearly, even with sell pressure, we can consistently keep pushing up better than a lot of the assets that are around us, right? Of course, in a bear market, there is downtrends. Look at where we are right now. We're at an extreme discount right now. But you have to look at, the things we're attached to. You have to look at, that value's been leaving this chain for 2 years straight. But if that switch flips, if these leaky holes get plugged on this chain, I very much think that the value can start flowing into this chain and actually stay. It is up to our community, though, on PulseChain. Like, we need to start protecting the funds that we get here on chain. There's a lot of things that launch on chain, or even other chains that tap into this community's value and extract it, right? We need to be more careful with the value we bring here, and not only the value we bring here, but with our own value as well. Because when PulseChain does become this kingdom, I believe it will, everyone's going to try to get through every crack behind the walls to get at that value. They're going to act like they're here to protect it. Really, they're just trying to grab it and take it out of these walls. So it is our duty to stand strong and actually protect the wealth that we create here within our walls. With power becomes responsibility ultimately.
Yeah. I was doing an exchange. I was swapping some tokens, and I was on a computer that I don't normally use. And I don't remember the URL for PulseX. So I just put pulsex.com, and don't go to that site, guys. Do not go to pulsex.com. As soon as it popped up, I was like, oh, this is the scam site that I heard about. So just be careful. Make sure you bookmark your stuff. So I went to my bookmarks after that, made sure I was going to the correct site. It was clearly not the PulseX I'm accustomed to, but still. And I was kind of doing it as an experiment too. I just kind of wanted, because I had heard that somebody got wrecked pretty badly by going to the wrong PulseX. And so I gave it a try. And sure enough.
So what's wrong with that PulseX? Because I was under the impression that Richard had that domain.
Maybe he does. I did hear that somebody got wrecked going to a wrong PulseX, I thought.
Yeah, like you can Google PulseX, and scammers will obviously pay Google to list, pulsex.org above everything. And if you go to pulsex.org, that's obviously a scam site. But, I'm under the assumption that Richard owns pulsex.com. I could be wrong. I obviously, have mine bookmarked as well for that reason, but I'm pretty sure he owns PulseChain.com, PulseX.com, and Hex.com.
You're probably right. It looks very different from PulseX.com, though. I mean, the app.pulsex. Whatever it is. It looks.
Oh, you're probably on the not the DApp, but just on the homepage. It's two different things.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see PulseX.com, and then the one that I have bookmarked is app.pulsex.com.
Yeah, because that's the PulseX DApp. Yeah, but PulseX.com is like the landing page, you know, to give some information and so on and so forth.
Oh, good. Because I was like, this is so easy for people to get wrecked by going to the wrong site. Okay, cool. False alarm. That's good to know. Does anybody else care to come up and talk? It's just been Zen and I the whole time, except for a couple questions on YouTube.
Yeah, anyone's welcome to come up. Banana, if no one wants to come up, I'm pretty ready to call it a day.
Me too.
It's been a pretty long day at work, and we've been ranting together for an hour and a half now.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I got someone coming up real quick. So
okay.
Hold on. What's up, Extra? Try to request to speak again, Extra. I might have clicked it wrong or something like that. Are you still there, Banana?
Yes, I am. I see Extra as a listener. There, now he's a speaker.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we hear you.
How you guys doing this evening?
Good.
Doing good.
Just pacing in circles. Finished dinner right before I came on here.
Nice, that's what's up. I just wanted to come up here real quick and just say how bullish I am on this entire ecosystem. Even just the brief little week we had of a little bit of a run up, that was good. I mean, it was pretty cool to watch, seeing how like volatile to the upside pTGC and UFO can get on just the slightest moves with the core coins. So yeah, I'm very optimistic on both of these coins, and I won't keep you guys too long. I just wanted to come up here and say what's up, and I thought it was cool that even just the slightest bit of movement, both of those coins did pretty good.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I think it goes a long way that, you know, our system in particular have broken down how to mechanically do that. Where I've never heard, and I've looked into hundreds of different cryptocurrencies and founders, and I've never had other people break down how to mechanically increase the price of their assets in the way we have, you know, figured out / done with the mechanic features within pTGC and UFO, the way we've structured a liquidity web, and then obviously also just educating our community on, you know, net buyers of just onboarding, etc., and how that directly impacts the chart. Obviously, in the effect of even with our automated systems, if we have more sell pressure than buy pressure by a large amount, even with pulse chain pumping, we could go down against pulse chain pumping. This is any asset, but we have a lot of mechanical features helping us against that. And then that's what also helps us onboard constantly new users, because our community has these strong foundations to lean on when things start going.
No, you guys are definitely informative. I was able to onboard folks that they're not really too deep into the Pulse Chain community, but they hold assets on Pulse Chain, and I was able to introduce pTGC and UFO to them, and they liked what they saw, and I believe there's probably at least a half a dozen onboards between those two coins over the past week. So that was cool seeing.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's Richard talks about this a lot. Like every one onboard that sorry, my kid's pulling my dog's tail, and my dog is not liking it. But yeah, it's crazy how that can expand out so quickly. Like you educate one person, how many people that one person actually onboards. You're a great example of that. Like someone who's very into the space and working very hard for your position, and Banana's kind of that same way. I look at like, you never know when you're going to onboard that next person who makes a massive impact to your ecosystem. Yep. You know, one person alone could bring in 100, or that one person might know one person who then that one person brings in 100. And I don't think we've experienced that yet with pTGC to that mass amount. And I don't think we fully have experienced that with Hex this cycle even close, right? Like last cycle when Hex was popping, I think that was like the beginning stages of that. And you can see what happened there. It did a 10,000x. I'm excited for that to start to expand this cycle, because we're kind of starting the foundation very strongly and trying to educate the community. And if we can keep educating our community from this like top point, like this is like the beginning stages, but then as it all kind of goes down, as it educates you, you have no idea how far that web will start to go. But if we keep educating on like the proper information, we'll create such a strong community, well educated, so on and so forth.
We did bring on K4K Crypto. Somehow he discovered us. Remember last late summer, fall, he discovered pTGC. He sold his house, bought pTGC. He was going bananas. He created several videos about it, but he's just being real quiet, I think, overall in crypto. But he got in big time, and he brought a lot of people with him because he has quite a following.
Yeah, he definitely helped our ecosystem a lot.
He did.
It was kind of sad because I feel like right when he came out was still when we were gaining a lot of trust, which I definitely think systems should be trustless for the most part, but people were trying to like see what this was about, right? I'm someone who obviously wasn't an influencer or anything like that, so they were trying to figure out what was about, and he definitely came forward before a lot of others, and he definitely I saw the comments on his posts and videos. They weren't too nice for him. Yeah. Which is sad, right? Because he definitely, whoever followed his moves, he definitely helped them out a lot. But yeah, sometimes leaders, that's what happens when you're leading. You get a little bit of backlash right away, and then people start to realize you figured out something before them. And I think that's a great example of it.
So real quick, interesting day I had. It was actually with the Solana guy that I know. You know, we used to talk a little bit back and forth, exchange plays, whatever. And, you know, he's not real big into Richard Hart coins. He has a little bit of a different approach with things. Like, he just like goes, he likes where the momentum's at and doesn't really care about like following into a narrative. He's kind of like a, you know, strike right before the green candle kind of guy. And he was even telling me, he said, you know, that pTGC and UFO lore is actually pretty nice, and I like it, and I might actually think about investing in those coins. And this is a guy that like, and I can't tell you how many times I tried to have conversations like, hey, at least get into PulseX and whatever, you know, but he was just firm on his word. But then, you know, he was kind of like, I like what I'm seeing with pTGC. And then you know, I had showed him UFO too, and he was like, interesting. So like, a guy like that who really wasn't willing to touch a Richard Hart ecosystem, which I don't know why. Everyone just has their opinions and whatever, but he was pretty fond of your guys' project.
Cool.
So that speaks volumes when like you guys are kind of regarded in a little bit different light if people aren't so like heavy on Richard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. It exposes you to his assets with a little bit of a different feel, just because it's a sub community built on his chain, right? And I think it's not only with that guy. I think we're going to have almost, I would say, better luck with listings and stuff like that too. Not exchange listings, but with like coin ranking sites and stuff like that, just because our distribution's a little bit different style than his. It's not like owned majority in just a couple wallets and stuff like that. But was it that like the foundation of it? Was it the mascots of it, or was it just, kind of the ideas of this tech that we're working off of that caught his attention? Or do you know what stood out to him?
So originally, I think it was just basically the advertisement behind the logo and the marketing around the whole lore of aliens and UFOs and stuff like that. But when he started, he read the white paper and he was looking more into things, started watching a couple of YouTube videos. I believe he was watching a recent one, and he was like, yeah, I like pTGC. And I think he asked me about UFO, and then I had showed him, and he was like, oh, so this is theirs too? I was like, yeah. He's like, cool. I'll look into it for sure. But yeah, he's I don't know, man. Some people, I try to talk to, they can't seem to get out of this perception of Richard, which I tell them, I'm like, you guys know that, the whole, marketing theme isn't really Richard. That was kind of hey, come check me out. I'm pissing you off, Richard. But it was just marketing, really. That the real person who will sit there and debate a Bitcoin maxi and go over all the stuff that you're gonna need to know in cryptocurrency. You would think you would watch more of those videos, but like I said, man, people you can steer a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that play isn't bad either, right? It sounds like he likes to go where the momentum is, and where the momentum is, the money is. So when you play that game, you actually can kind of make revenue off of whatever's trending and whatever has movement at that time. And he probably is into that because that's what works well for him. I sometimes feel like a lot of the people within PulseChain are a little bit different, to where we really believe in what we have here, and we're willing to just keep working at this specific product instead of just kind of hopping to what's trending and where all the movement is, knowing that when our turn comes in that rotation, we're going to be positioned very, very well for it. And instead of getting a 10x because we missed the first 10x, we're receiving that 100x or that 1000x. You know what I mean? And it's there's so many different ways to play crypto. And to me, that just sounds like the way he enjoys playing it. And this is, in my opinion, 90% of people within crypto. And that's why I don't even think that we will receive the main inflow of people into PulseChain until we're cooking in our ecosystem. At that point, pTGC will probably be a monster. PulseChain, PulseX will all be massive, but that will still be early for a lot of these people because they're waiting for the confirmation, right? They're waiting for the confirmation that Richard didn't run away with value, or this chain didn't just die and just sink forever. They need the confirmation before they come over because of how they play crypto, right? And it could just be how the majority of people enter into crypto, or how they see others being successful. A lot of the mainstream influencers, they are constantly talking about what's trending because that's where the money is and that's where the mind share is, right? Influencers don't get a lot of clicks or views off of talking what's boring. Right now, PulseChain's pretty boring, so that it doesn't make sense for them to actually talk about what they do talk about is whatever's trending and wherever the money is and whatever's gathering the most mind share. And some people will just follow that, and following that is actually proven to work really well. If you can be ahead of that curve by just a few weeks every single time, you can make a lot of money in a short amount of time. But I do think PulseChain is in the rotation. It's just, in the past, Richard has made sure he was last in the rotation, because then all the value on chain is at all-time highs, and then his time in the rotation gets to tap into the most amount of money. This is kind of how I saw him do Hex, and I personally believe that's how he's playing this as well, is, hey, wait for the value to flow in, make sure you're the last one in the rotation. Now you have the most amount of value to tap into and bring into your chain.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything is very strategically thought out. I think you have to really know what you're doing to even become this successful in terms of a founder of a EVM chain, and all the legal stuff and whatnot that got in. I wouldn't say got in the way, but kind of. You know what I mean? It definitely was not that. Influencers didn't really want to speak about it. gate kept left and right, whatever. But, I think there's value in like speculation and being early to things. And part of why I've had a group of people that trusted, pretty much my direction in cryptocurrencies, because like I gave it to them like straight, like this is what it is. This is the risk factors. Like new things sometimes, they go through the most FUD, but that's kind of like where you get the most X's. And I'm glad that I'm able to grab a majority of people's respect and really showcase to them like how good this EVM chain is, regardless of like the chart right now. Because, obviously sentiment changes, green candles happen, everyone's happy, everyone forgets about the bearish times. 3 months of extreme green candles can erase 3 years of down into the red, right? So I'm overall bullish though, for sure.
Yeah, humans are very like short-minded in that side, right? Like literally everyone will forget the last 3 to 4 years that everyone went through with just a couple months of some nice times, right? Like you're always remembered by like your last move. And I think PulseChain will be that exact same way. Like no one will remember the last 2 years if we just have 2 good months. That's all people will know. That's all people will think about. Any new user coming in won't know what you or I or any of the PulseChain community have went through for this 4-year cycle, but we will be rewarded for it if we've stayed, right? Anyone who left obviously would have to come back a little bit higher, so on and so forth, which there's nothing wrong with, right? It's a long journey, and some people don't want to stay active in an ecosystem like this for this long amount of time. But for me, I have like my own specific way I dealt with it. Like obviously I put a lot of cards in myself instead of them only being in Richard, where I have a lot of cards still in Richard as far as the chain goes, but I wasn't willing to just kind of sit on my hand and wait for someone else to change my future. I felt like I could put a product out here that not only helps change my future, but then changes some other people's futures as well within this ecosystem. And it gives us something to do in the meantime as far as building this awesome product up that could actually be a tool for this chain. And this is a lot of other people, like everyone has like this unique skill set that they can bring to the table to make themselves useful in this downtime, and we can all put in work. It's just kind of everyone has like this different skill set, and everyone can be utilized to get ready and get prepped and onboard and build this ecosystem up. So when it's time, we're all ready and it's go time. And some people don't want to do any of that, right? Some people got into this thinking, I like this because I don't have to do anything. I literally don't want to do anything. I put my money in this and I'm going to wait for everyone else to do the work for me, which is fine. But in that side, it's like, that's like being on a sports team and saying, hey, I just want the jersey, but I'm going to wait on the bench and I hope my team gets the win for me. You know what I mean? You can't control your destiny at all in that circumstance. All you do you're placing a bet on a certain group of people, but not participating. Where I'm kind of like, hey, pass me the ball. I'm going to make sure to try to get some baskets to give our team the best chance of winning. Simple as that. And yes, I believe Richard's on our team. He's coming in mid-game and he's going to just blow everyone out of the water and make it a blowout. But, even if that doesn't happen, we can still win this game with or without.
Yep, all good points for sure. And if this ecosystem even does remotely, like some of the side conversations, like you, I, or Banana have had, like on numbers and stuff, like it's gonna be ridiculous. Like even if like PulseChain just does like a 10x from sacrifice prices, like I could only imagine where pTGC and UFO land.
Yeah, as long as it's done remotely what it's done in the past, right? Even similar, better, like a little worse, even a little worse, it equals ridiculous numbers. Personally, I think that this next move on PulseChain should mean a lot better, because I do think this next move on PulseChain should be its biggest moves yet. If this becomes a successful chain, which then means it should be the biggest move for pTGC and UFO as well. Most value flowing into the chain, biggest X multiplier. I personally believe everything we've seen so far is just little glimpses of what's actually going to happen in the future. And, we've expanded the numbers plenty of times, and it gets pretty crazy.
Yes, it does. Well, now my team. Who was that?
Oh, no, I was just saying it definitely does. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for coming up and chatting, Extra. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem, guys. You guys have a good one. I'm going to hop off here. I got to travel home tomorrow from vacay, so hopefully I can start doing spaces again. I just had to take a little break, spend some time with the family and stuff. But
there you go, man.
All right, you guys have a good night, man.
You too.
See you guys.
Safe travels. Zen, you want to shut it down?
Yeah, I'm going to shut it down. Thanks for coming up, Extra. Enjoy the last day of your vacay. Banana, thanks for co-hosting with me and
you bet.
Chatting with me this entire time. Everyone listening, thanks for coming in and listening. If any of you have any specific UFO and don't feel comfortable coming up on spaces, I'm more than happy to have private conversations on the topic. Also, I hold VCs in our Telegram that yet are not private, but a lot more private than this. They're non-recorded spaces, so you can ask questions and feel free to know that it's not going to get blasted on YouTube by Banana over here. So,
yes.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's all good. Yeah.
Okay, guys. See ya.
Yeah. Thank you, Zen. All right. I'm checking out. That was fun. I enjoy those spaces. Isn't it funny how like Bitcoin is at an all-time high or near all-time high, and over here on PulseChain's, it's just like the only thing happening is pTGC and UFO, and even that's just today is just kind of. I'm not being embarrassed. I'm just being real. It's just kind of funny. But guys, things could light up at any minute, or well, not any minute, but you know what I mean. Real soon. It could be weeks. We don't know, but our time is getting closer. I can tell. It's just like there's like something bubbling, something a little shaking happening. All right, guys. Have a good week. We'll see y'all later.